Question 7 deals with functions and a bit of differentiation. We're given that f of x is equal to 8x to the power of a half minus x to the power of negative 1. Now we want to find then f of 9. What happens when you plug 9 in instead of x? Well, we don't have a calculator for this paper, so we need to be able to take x to the power of a half and x to the power of minus 1 and rewrite them as something that we can deal with a lot easier. Sorry, more easily. And to the power of a half, I know means a square root. So that's 8 times the square root of x. Notice the half is only applying to, it's only the power of x, so the square root is only the square root of x. It's not root 8x, it's 8 times the square root of x. Minus, well, I know that a negative index means we're going to end up with a fraction 1 over something. And what are we left with? Well, when I take that negative index away, I'm left with x to the power of 1, or just x. So I've got 1 over x. So now I can go and plug in 9 instead of x to get f of 9. So that's 8 times the square root of 9 minus 1 over 9, which is 8 times 3 is 24, and minus a ninth. And so overall that's 23 and 8 ninths. So we've done the first bit. Second bit then says take this value of f of x and put it equal to 0 and solve it. So I'm going to write 8 root x minus 1 over x equals 0. Well, let's take this term across. 8 root x equals 1 over x. And 8, well, the square root of x is x to the power of a half. And when I multiply that by x, I get x to the power of 3 over 2 equals 1. Or x to the power of 3 over 2 equals 1/8. Now, let's think what x to the power of 3 over 2 means. It means the bottom is the root of the equation, so it's the square root, the second root. And 3 is the power to which we raise x. So x cubed, and when we take the square root of that, we get 1/8. Okay, well, if I want to find what x is, then I do the reverse procedure. Instead of cubing this, we're going to cube root the other side. So I can say that's the square root of x will equal the cube root of an 8th. And the cube root of 1 is 1, the cube root of 8 is 2. Here I've got the square root of x equals a half, so if I want to find out what x is, I do the reverse procedure on the other side. So instead of square root on the left, I square the right, and 1/2 squared is a half times a half, which is a quarter. And so our value of x is 1/4. Part 3 then says find f dash of x. Now f dash of x is it's the first derivative. Okay. So we have that f of x is equal to 8x to the power of a half minus x to the minus 1. Notice I've rewritten it in index form again, and that's because I want to differentiate f dash of x. To differentiate, we multiply through the power, reduce the power by 1. So a half times 8 is 4. X to the power of, be careful here, when you take 1 away from a half, you get minus a half. What about this term here? Well, when I multiply through by the power, minus times minus 1 gives me plus x to the power of. Again, be careful, when I subtract 1 from negative 1, I get negative 2. We're going to find, that will probably get us full marks, but we're going to find out what f dash of 4 is. So I'm going to rewrite this again. X to the power of a half is the square root of x, but I know that when I have a negative index, it's going to be something over the square root of x. That index only applies to the x, so the 4 is going to stay where it is on top. So I'm going to write that as 4 over root x. Plus, again, I've got a negative index, so that means there's going to be a fraction involved here. Something there's no other numbers there, so I'm just going to put a 1 on top. X to the power of negative 2, well, I've taken into account the negative part of that index by putting a fraction, so I'm just going to write x squared there. So f dashed of x is 4 over root x minus 1 over x squared. So f dashed 4 is equal to 4 over the square root of x, which is 4, plus 1 over x squared. So that's 4 over the square root of 4 is 2, plus 1 over 16, which is 2 and 1/16, or if you want 33 over 16.